So, you know, there is still privacy issues. There's going to be restrictions. I worry a little bit about spray planes hitting these things, that kind of thing. So there's going to have to be some rules, obviously. But look out for in 2015, because if they lift the restrictions to the point, this really could take off. And again, it's another good reason why we're out ahead and trying to look at some things right now. But the project got involved with, like I said, it was a true team effort. Guided Systems is a company out of Stockbridge, Georgia. They have the helicopter and all the know-how on how to fly. Middle Georgia State College out of the Macon area. They actually have a team, like a university research type team that does these things. So they are the main components of all the technicalities of how to fly, etc. UGA, Dr. Beasley and myself got involved. Sunbelt Expo is a site we picked. It was pretty much a perfect site to do this kind of project. And then Center for Ag Innovation here out of Tifton was our major funding source. And I do need to mention that both the Georgia Peanut Commission and the Georgia Cotton Commission also contributed to the funding of this project. Again, I'm going to try to hit as many details as I can, but basically we did what we call 9 missions. I think that's kind of fun. Basically we flew 9 times during the growing season, starting about middle of June, every 2 weeks, right up through harvest. We ended up flying at 675 feet, and that was one of the first things we had to learn and figure out. This team, again, very professional, did everything above board, etc. They filed flight plans with the FAA every time. We have spotters. I see my technicians in the back. They acted as spotters. We had to have spotters looking for small planes maybe coming in the area. And actually, probably the closest thing that got to us was a buzzard. But, and I don't know what it would do to a buzzard. I think it would kind of rip him up pretty good. Anyway, so we had spotters and it was all above board. There's a video of this, and you might be able to find it on the internet somewhere. It's a little long, I'm not going to show it, but basically what we do is you have one guy that takes off using a joystick, get it off the ground. He hands it over to the guy with a computer that's actually has a set pattern already set up. They know exactly what altitude they're flying, where they're going to go, and they fly over the set field, and then he hands it back to the guy with the joystick and lands it. Battery life is only about 20 minutes at this point. But we had 2 batteries, so we flew for 20 minutes, plugged that one back in and used the other one, and they could go. We used a multi-spec camera to get what we call NDVI. Again, don't have a lot of time to go into details. Some of you might be familiar with this technology, but basically a multi-spec camera, you're just taking wavelengths like near infrared and infrared, and it's a fairly simple calculation, and you come up with this thing called NDVI, which is basically, the VI stands for vegetative index, and I'll show you the pictures. It basically shows you how well the plants are growing or if they aren't. So that's what the main things we did. This is the kind of images we ended up with. This is approximately 5-acre peanut field there at the expo, and a lot of work goes into getting this image. I didn't have to do that work, luckily, but one of the, I think, misconceptions right now is you can fly these things and you can download the information into a card and your laptop and your pickup truck and look at the images real quick. It's not quite that simple at this stage. That's one of the things we got to learn how to do quicker and more efficiently, etc. Because basically at this large images like this, one of the reasons we ended up flying at 675 feet is we had clearance to go to 700, so we came right under that. We said, well, maybe we'll get better images at 500 or 200 feet. But basically, with the camera we were using, and we had a really nice camera, it was about a $4,000 camera, it took really good resolution images at the higher, and we don't have to use as many images to stitch together. Because basically, this is all GPS, georeferenced, and they take it back and they take the number of images. I think it ends up taking about 6 or 7 images to get this, and they have to stitch them together, georeference, and it's georeferenced, so you could lay this on top of a Google map if you pull up your farm, etc. So that's how it works. Now the peanut field, Dr. Beasley had a number of varieties and I think row patterns across here. We cut one alley on the top, as you can see, and we held off, where's Bob? We held off the fungicides on that end to see if we would see anything during the season. This is from July 18th, one of the earlier ones. And what do you notice? Here, green is better, white is almost no growth, or white, if I understand it right on NDVI, is almost like standing water. And guess what? How wet were we this year at Expo, July 18th? That spot that you see up in the middle left, that's basically a low spot that's drowned it out. So that's the kind of image you can see. So that's Peanut. This is a cotton field. It looks a little different because I got a lot of alleys cut in I run all my plots 40 feet long, about 4 rows wide by 40 foot long, a bunch of alleys, some to turn the picker around to pick the cotton. An early one on there, you don't see a lot of difference. If you use your imagination, up in the top right might look a little darker. That whole top block of 5 tiers got some pre-plant fertilizer on the cotton where the others didn't. Also, you'll notice a weak area in the bottom top showing up already, even in June. But this is before we imposed a lot of our fertilizer treatments for our fertilizer studies. So you go from June 18th, you go to August 2nd, now you're starting to see some things. Again, that's why Dr. Beasley thought it'd be good to fly over to cotton. He knew that a lot of fertility trials on cotton show up. Top right, the real light area, I did not put any side dress nitrogen on. Right to the left of that, you see some weak spots, and by the way, this is the overall image, but with the raw data, you can zoom right in to 4 rows by 40 foot long and draw a box and do an NDVI. That's how good the resolution is, etc. Down in the lower left, I put some different nitrogen potash strips, and one of the reasons we were trying to see, we know we can pick up growth differences, but can you tell the difference, for example, between nitrogen potash? At this point, I'm not even sure you can tell the difference between if it's a nutrient problem or some other problem, let alone that, but we wanted to try to look at that. This is later on, August 9th. You can see the pivot tracks there. And the reason I showed this is because one of the very first meetings, I wasn't sure what kind of camera we were going to use, and I said, well, can we put a real camera in there? And they looked at me kind of funny. And I'm like, you know, like a digital camera you buy at Walmart or whatever. You know, because I thought maybe we could pick up some differences, you know, just by a real image. They said, oh, you mean an RGB camera? That stands for red, green, blue, I found out. And that's what most of us think of as a digital camera. And this is what you get there. A little different, because that was the same image as this one. I'm still not sure we can tell at this point the difference between nitrogen potash deficiency. I thought maybe nitrogen showed up a little red on cotton, and potash being a little more bronzy you might, but we don't. And I believe they got one on peanuts too, but I didn't have that image. Which reminds me, not only can you use different cameras, but even with that multi-spec camera, you can get all different kind of indices and do different things with the images. Once you have the images, you can play with them forever. You can look at a lot of different things. One of the first images they gave to me was like this, in this pink and gray scale. And it's actually not bad. Pinker is better here. And this is early on, and we thought, we actually zoomed in, and the resolution again was so good, you could probably even take a stand count with this kind of image. So we thought that was interesting. We unfortunately did not get yields on the peanut field. We did on the cotton. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And really, when you think about it, they weren't that correlated that well, and that's not really the goal. I mean, you know, yeah, probably better growth, better yield, et cetera, it probably correlates, but that, you know, what did you gain from that? What we're really after in the long run here is trying to fly over, look for problems, and then fix them, so you'll have a good yield at the end. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the. I had 3 different varieties: 0K or 0 fertilizers, had some K, and N and K. We're looking at the differences. One other thing we did on both peanuts and cotton is we took images. In the case of peanuts, right before we dug and a day after we dug. Maybe we thought we might be able to pick up white mold damage. And we also did it before we defoliated and after we defoliated the cotton. And this is the picture of the NDVI before digging peanut, and this is what it looks like after. And it does look a little different. You can see something's going on there. Peanuts turned up on top of the ground look a lot different than before you dug them. And I'm not sure we can pick up white mold at this point, but Dr. Valides was here yesterday, and he does some work with this, and he said you might be able to make a yield map out of that. That might be useful, I don't know. But another thing that I didn't even think about before we started this project was where these UAVs fit in on other ways to get images. Again, the whole goal is to get a good image and use it. And, you know, you can get, actually researchers they have handheld ones, but what about tractor mounted? You can put it on a tractor. UAVs would be above the tractor, but below the high altitude plane and the satellite. And they kind of all have pros and cons. Tractor, if you're going across the field anyway, not a bad idea maybe to get an image, but you're probably not going to do it just to get an image. It would take a lot longer than flying a UAV and take a lot of diesel fuel. The problem with the plane and the satellite is you're above the clouds, and clouds are an issue. Even with the UAV flying below the clouds, you either want all clouds or all sun. What do you think we got a lot of times this summer? We got partly cloudy. We had clouds going back and forth. What we did with the helicopter is they could actually, if a small cloud was coming, they could actually stop and hover and then start it up again. Or the other strategy is to run that set pattern, but run it 3 times, and then you hope that 1 out of your 3 for each spot you need, you're going to have one that works. So that's how we kind of dealt with the clouds at this point. So you always got that kind of thing. I've also heard people trying to put them on pivots, but I think there's an issue with the water causing problems with the images. So what did we learn? You know, right out of the gate, again, we learned optimum altitude and how to deal with clouds. I learned it takes a lot of time to process the images, and maybe there's some ways we can speed that up. We need longer battery life. You would think battery technology would keep up with everything else. Need to explore cheaper UAVs and camera options. I told you the camera we were using cost $4,000. The helicopter we use costs $60,000. That's why they didn't let me fly. So, I really believe we can do that cheaper, but you got to be careful because that little $1,000 one, you can't have, if it's light, you can't have wind affecting it and doing this, you're going to get a blurry image. So there's going to be a balance there to get a little heavier duty one, but not cost so much. One of the big questions we got, what do you think the 2 questions you get most from farmers is? One is, what does it cost? And the other is, how many acres can I cover in a day? And that's something I think would be good to do in the next stop of the process and really push that and see how far we can go. We need to look at other indices for detection of problems. NDVI is just one. We might find out that we can play around with different wavelengths, and maybe manganese deficiency on peanut, we use this indice. Maybe white mold, we might be able to use this or index, and that's where hopefully we're going, but we're not there yet. Need to explore using tractor-mounted imaging is maybe in tandem with the UAVs, and a combination of some tractor-mounted and some of the tractor-mounted images I've seen look pretty similar to the ones we got with the UAVs. Need to keep an eye on the regulations. That's what's going to drive whether this takes off or not, supposedly in fall of 2015. And as a team, we need to find a new funding source because I don't think we have funding for next year, and we still got a lot of questions, as you see, to answer. So we're looking for folks to help us out and keep on this so we can answer questions that farmers are going to have if this really takes off. One of the biggest, the way I see this really being used is for scouting and troubleshooting. And I think we can do a better job, you can do a quicker job, a more thorough job, and earlier detection with these things than you can. My daughter worked as a crop scout in Turner County this summer. I kind of know how scouts work a lot. And it just takes time to walk across the field, and you can do a good job, but if a scout can show up, fly this over the field, if we can get it to the point where we can download and look at the images pretty quickly, they can go there and they can compare this week's compared to last week's image, and as soon as they see a problem show up, again, I'm not sure how well we're going to be able to say I know exactly what that is until we look at a lot of them and use the right index. But at least you say I got a problem, then you either go back out there or maybe even fire up the helicopter again and go hover right over where the problem is and check it out. Fix the problem, and then we can really optimize yield down the road. That's how I see these things being used. Stand counts, nutrient deficiencies. We had a lot of spreader problems on cotton this year. I would have loved to have one of these things to go up and go over and catch. I got up on the toolbox of the truck. That's about the best I could do. These things could really help you look for those kind of problems. Weed, disease, insects, we need to team up with more folks to look at all the problems we can get and how they show up. So stay tuned for more info on that, because I think it's going to be an interesting project to carry on. And again, if things get lifted in 2015, you're going to see a lot of these things probably flying around in South Georgia. Thank you.